Andrew, I have a brief question here for you. How many pastors do you know that consider themselves to be friends with Justin Bieber?
None that I know.
Well, on today's show, we are interviewing Pastor Chad Veach, who considers Justin Bieber to be a friend.
Hey guys, welcome back. We're here at Hillsong Conference 2017, having the best time, and got some good friends of mine that have stopped by on the couch. We've got Chad, Justin, and Carl. Love you. I love you, man.
I want you to know you're loved.
Thank you so much. Guys, so how you guys doing? Are you guys enjoying conference, Carl? You're wearing a Hillsong college
jacket. You see these boots?
Those are very cool.
It wasn't your turn. Off-white. These are off-white.
It wasn't your turn.
These are off-white.
So today we're joined here with Pastor Chad Veach. His new book is called Help, I Work with People, Getting Good at Influence, Leadership, and People Skills. His new book is endorsed by both John Maxwell and Kourtney Kardashian. All this and more on today's edition of the Thrive Time Show on your radio and podcast download.
Get ready to enter the Thrive Time Show.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
We started from the bottom, now we're on the top. Teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colton Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of five, that's why I'm alive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's the C&Z up on your radio. And now 3, 2, 1, here we go!
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom and we'll
Yes, and yes! Devin, it is always ecstasy when Z is next to me, but he is not here. You are my plan B. You
I'll
are
take
my
that.
plan B. Dr. Z's out of town. But you're like a plan. You're like an A team member, but you're my plan B.
I'll take that.
Now, Devin, have you ever seen a movie that you didn't like 5 or 6 times? Was there ever a movie that you've seen in your life that you did not like the movie, but you had to watch the movie 5 or 6 times? That is how I feel about the nightly news. It's like tonight on Fox, everybody might die. Tonight on CNN, we're going to vary it up. Everyone might die. Tonight on Fox, it's negative.
Oh, gosh.
So I thought, let's get a guy on the show who can bring some positivity on to the show. We have the best-selling author, the globally renowned faith leader, Chad Veach, on the phone there. Chad, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. You just are the shot in the arm that I need. This kind of energy, this kind of positivity. I'm all in on this.
Now, what is wrong with you? Why are you so positive? Are you on steroids? Do you believe in Christ? Are you believing in Christ while doing steroids? What's wrong with you?
Well, one thing that I refuse to face is reality. So I just want to live in a false world so I can stay positive. No, I don't know. I just think some people are just born positive. They're born happy. Others got to work a little bit harder for it. But my mom is positive, and I think I got it from her.
Where are you based? Where's home for you?
I live in Los Angeles. I'm originally from Seattle, Washington, but I've lived now in LA for 5 years.
Do you find yourself drawn to locations that riot? Is that your deal? Do you pick cities to live in based upon how likely they are to have riots?
Yeah, right. Oh, man. Yeah, the Seattle one,
Yeah.
It feels a little bit different and more intense than here. Everything in L.A. has felt, the ones that I've gone to, the protests have just felt so peaceful. And very kind. And
Got it.
You would love it.
What if you had to break it down as a percentage, and I want to get into your new book, but if there's 100 people protesting, how many of them are rioting? Just so I know a percentage, because I'm not there. I just want to get your take, because you live there.
Yeah, what's a great question. I only go like around noon or 2. I think the latest I've gone to one is at 4. Because that stuff is really not happening until later in the day. When it first broke, that Saturday and Sunday, I think it was a little bit dangerous in those times perhaps. But the last couple of weeks here in Los Angeles during the day have been very, very peaceful.
Now, you are a pastor of a church. With your church, tell us about the demographic mix of your church.
Well, that's a great question. I feel like our church looks like Los Angeles. And, if you ever come to L.A., you go, is L.A. white? Is it Asian? Is it Mexican, Latin? Is it black? What is it? And I feel like our church is like that. It's got strong representation from, every ethnicity because that's really L.A. L.A. looks like that.
So you're a guy, just for the listeners out there, giving some context. If everybody Google searches Chad Veach, Veach, you're a guy that is in L.A. You're sharing the truth in a city that needs it. You're our modern missionary, man. I mean, this is what you do. What inspired you to get into ministry? I mean, when did you? I mean, you've obviously had a lot of success now, but what first inspired you to get into ministry?
Oh, man, that's a great question. I just grew up with a father that, he's a pastor, and I ran from it, even though I admired him and respected him and really, loved what my dad's church was about. As a kid, I was like, the sacrifice, the work, the people. I don't know if I want to do that. So I ran from the call for a long time, and it wasn't until I was 16 years old that I really surrendered my life over to what I felt like I was supposed to do with my life.
So when did you start the church that you currently pastor?
So we started, we're about to celebrate 5 years in the month of August. So, it's pretty cool. We started our church in our living room with 11 people, and we moved from Seattle, and, it just was a pretty amazing story to be a part of, to witness it. And it only convinced me of how committed God is to building his church and reaching his people. The miracles we experienced, I was blown away. I was like, wow, God is obsessed with his people, and he is absolutely the one that builds his church.
Now, tell me, how did you get your first 10 people to attend the church? Were you going door to door? Were you offering people free steak dinners? Were you washing cars? Were you harassing people at the mall? What were you doing?
Well, what's crazy, I always feel like God kind of sets you up. You're doing one thing to prepare you for the next. So, I was a youth pastor for 15 years. I did 6 of those years here in L.A. on the east side. And, I ran interns and all that kind of stuff. And then right before I moved to L.A., I had just traveled for about 18 months full-time on the road. I didn't realize that when I was preaching in Dallas and Albuquerque and New York and, Florida, I didn't realize that would help us launch the church. So when we announced we're going to start this church, people moved from all over the country to come help us. So I felt like we had an uphill advantage in some regard, and we just luckily did youth ministry long enough, and those people were young enough to go like, all right, we're not stuck in our houses and we don't have mortgage payments. We got apartment payments. All right, we'll move down and help.
So let's say that you were talking to a young man or a woman, maybe an old man or an old woman. You're talking. You could be talking to Father Time right now, but you're talking to somebody who is financially in a place where they could afford to fund a church, right? They feel called to launch a church. What would be your pro tips on how to grow a church and to reach the community? What would be your tips?
My first tip would be to really have the thought that God will build it. He will do the work. And so sometimes I think we take ourselves too serious in life, and we take our work too serious. And I think I would just start with putting people at ease, going like, hey, grace grows the church. God's committed. So let's enjoy life. And guess what? It's like I played basketball growing up. My dad used to always say when we got down, he'd say, you know what, son, there's no such thing as a 10-pointer. Church is that same way. You just reach people one at a time. Every person matters. Every life counts. And so I would just encourage people, hey, take it slow. Don't rush past people. Every person matters. And just trust God through the process.
Do you recommend passing out invite cards? Do you recommend calling people? Do you recommend passing out flyers? I mean, what was your effect? What's kind of some really practical? Because we have a lot of pastors that listen to this show, so let's just assume they're trusting God. They're in the Bible. They're in the Word. They're sharing the truth. Their motives are pure. They have the money to do it themselves. They don't need to raise money or anything. What's a good way to reach people?
Well, I would say use social media. Social media is where it's at. And instead of spending, a couple $1,000 or $1,000 on absurd amount of flyers, why not put that money into promotion on Facebook and promotion on social media, on Twitter, or, I think the best platform for me is Instagram. And, right where people are at on their phone, and they can click to your website and see more photos and see your life and the way that you're loving your kids and your wife and your family. I would say invest like crazy into social media.
If you do not want to touch this topic with a 10-foot pole, you can simply hang up on me, and I'll know that was a bad question. But we're in a time where we have a lot of racial divisiveness going on, or at least the discussion of it going on. Now, I could say this. My friends that I have who are not white, which turns out to be, I think, more than half of them, because I just don't ever really contemplate the idea. I live in Oklahoma, and I just really don't contemplate people's skin color. I feel like we're all created, in the image of Christ. I feel like we're all the same race. I think we're different colors, It's kind of like Subway. All the bread kind of tastes the same. It's just different colors, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how I look at it. So I don't really have any racial divisiveness with my friends. I just don't. But I know people that feel that tension. What would you say to our listeners, our 500,000 listeners who are trying to have that conversation? Some of our listeners are black, some are white. They don't know what they can talk about, what they can't. And there's that tension that's being created. What would be your words to our listeners?
Well, I think right now you already hit the nail on the head. The word is listen. And I think specifically the white side, white people, we need to listen to our African-American brothers and sisters who have felt marginalized and silenced and have felt inequality and have grown up with judgments that are unfair, preconceived notions that are just not right. And so the thing I've been saying to our church and what I'm trying to model and implement in my life is listen, learn, and lead. We got to listen, even if somebody's yelling at me, and even if somebody's screaming and saying, this, that, and the other. It's not my time to reply. It's not my time to defend. It's not my time to justify. It's my time to listen. It's my time to learn. Learn, how did we get here? What is the history of our country? What are the policies that have put us in this position? And then lead the conversation. Lead my home. Lead my children. Lead my community. And I think White Fragility is just an interesting book and topic, because I think you say the word racism and right away people are like, I'm not racist. That's for them. It's like, no, right now it's a time for us to just, it's kind of like the coronavirus. Let's just, before we rule everything out, let's maybe rule everything in. Maybe I do have a problem. Maybe I do have an issue. And I think that's the way we should be modeling that right now, is listen, learn, and lead.
Now, there are a lot of people out there. We live in a diverse country. So I'll give you an example. We have listeners in Amarillo, Texas. We have listeners very far south Texas. We have listeners in Colorado. I've talked to them recently. One of the guys I talked to recently, he says if you're a white guy in his town, you're a rare thing in his particular town. Some of our listeners are in a town where if you're an African-American, you're a black guy, that's a rare thing. So there's like racism all different ways. I mean, there are towns where if you're a white guy, it's a rough place to be. There are towns where if you're Hispanic, it's a rough place to be. There's all different divisiveness there. What are you preaching right now? What are you teaching from the pulpit about this? Are you teaching the listen, learn, leader? How are you addressing the feelings of divisiveness that are going on from coast to coast?
Yeah, I've the last 4 weeks on Wednesdays, I've been interviewing different African Americans in our community. Yeah. And trying to listen to their stories and trying to understand what we need to resolve. And then, I'm trying to go to the scriptures. I think ultimately, what is the first message that we need to be hearing and preaching? It is the message of Jesus. Jesus is the solution to the sin problem of racism. Racism is sin. Well, what causes us to get rid of our sin? Grace. So it's a gospel solution. The Bible says in 1 John chapter 4, verse 10, that literally perfect love drives out all fear. You can't have fear and you can't have hatred and the love of Jesus overwhelm your life. So it says, if I hate my brother, I haven't seen God. So I need to see Jesus. I need to see the cross. I need to see the blood, and I need to receive his love, because if that happens, then I'll be able to love all people, all of humanity, and the sin of racism will be eradicated from my life. And that's what I need from my heart. I need all of that out and the love of God to overwhelm my life. So I've been trying to preach the solution as best as possible, because I think Jesus is the answer first to racism.
Genesis chapter 1, verses 27 reads, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them." I don't see a part in there where it says, so God created some of mankind in his image and some. And I just don't see that. I don't even understand how you could be a Christian and even process racism. I don't get it. I appreciate you for being in the trenches teaching about this and so many other topics. And right now, I don't want to pigeonhole you into a racism topic because there's so many other topics. But you actually, before this COVID craziness, before the protest craziness, you wrote this new book called Help. I work with people, getting good at influence, leadership, and people skills. What inspired you to write your new book, Help?
Yeah, well, first of all, people are my favorite part of life. I think people make the world go round.
You like people?
It doesn't matter where you live as long as you've got, the right people around you. You can be stuck in, anywhere in the world, but people are the greatest treasure of life. And by the way, it's the number one thing that God loves. God loves his people. He doesn't love church buildings as much as he loves his people. And so I think, again, when you get the love of God, the first thing he does is he gives you a love for others. And so I've just always been a people person. I've always been very impacted by Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and read that book and was so inspired to memorize people's names and have good manners and send thank you cards. And so I was just very inspired to write, maybe a modern take on how do we treat people. And I think we're living in this culture of, Karens. We're living in this culture of
Karens. Are you ripping on Karen? What is it? You just said we're living in a world of Karens. Will you please? Because I know we have some listeners out there that.
Karen video.
What do you mean by Karens? Just for people, I just want to make sure, because I know what you mean, but I want to make sure that so people know. What do you mean by Karens?
Well, it's a Twitter thing. They call these people that are basically acts of racism, acts of judgment. Clearly you don't live in this neighborhood. Clearly you shouldn't get on the airplane with the first class cabin. Clearly you shouldn't be in this park. And basically just people freaking out, white people who are racist against, against minorities. And so they call these females Karen. So that's what
Karens.
The reference is.
Oh,
Karens. But it's like, hey, guess what? Help. I work with people. I got family issues. I've got coworker issues. I've got an issue with my neighbor. I've got an issue with one of my siblings. I got an issue with one of my children, my spouse. I don't care what field or profession you are in, you work with people. You work with people when you call the Wi-Fi company about how slow your Wi-Fi is. You work with people when you go to the Chick-fil-A. You just work with people.
Okay.
And my goal of this book is that people wouldn't tolerate others and be so frustrated, work with people, but they would leave the book going, I love people now more than ever before. And you gave me some tools and some practical steps on how to engage others. Okay,
now I want you to equally divide this, and I am not trying to argue with you. I just want to bring up something. Proverbs 13:20 states, "Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm." Many of our listeners know the story of Abraham. He had to leave his kinfolk to go pursue God's dream. So there's this balance we have, right? We have to love people, Pastor. You're telling us we have to love people, but there's also a time where your roommate smells like cheese and always steals your wallet, and you've been talking to him about this for several, maybe months, and eventually you got to kick that roommate out and say, look, I don't want to suffer harm. I don't want to smell like cheese. I need you to take a shower and bring back my wallet. There's a certain time that you have to, and so there are certain times in the Bible God says, hey, you got to go and don't look back or you'll turn into a pillar of salt. And there's a different, help us navigate that. How do we know when it's time to say, Karen, I'm out with love, but Karen, I'm out. We're done. And when is it time to try to fix it and fix it and fix it? Help us. What does your book teach about this?
Yeah, the first section, I'm so glad you asked that. The first section of the book, the three sections, I'll break down the three sections.
Cool.
The first section has to do with self, because all of my relationships are really, truly a reflection of my health. Healthy relationships are contrived of healthy individuals. And so I've got to get healthy. I've got to figure out my defense mechanisms, my dysfunctions, who do I gravitate towards? I got to really solve the self-worth thing first, because that will impact all of my relationships. The second one has to do with one-on-one, just, your friends, the people that you work with, just relationships. And then the third section of the book has to do with groups, how to lead families, how to lead teams, how to lead organizations. But I think everything starts with self, having a self-worth and a self-respect and a healthy, God-centered self-view allows me to navigate. You know what? I've been kind and I've been respectful, but yeah, unless I get my car back and you apologize for the cheese thing, I just, you know what? I need some distance. So I think there's a whole part of that that's really real.
Now, this is probably a weird time to tell you, but I have some pent-up frustration with you, Mr. Chad. So I'm going to cue up my boo button. This is you booing me here. Okay, I'm going to get it off my chest. I've been sorting through these issues. When I'm getting ready to interview people, I will Google them. I will look up them. I will read their book. I'll get into. I do my research, and I have discovered you are a beautiful man, and you know what you're talking about. So I am mad at you because I have chosen to be envious of a beautiful man. I mean, Devin, do you see this man? Are you seeing this man? Charles, do you see this guy?
I see him.
I am upset about it. And then the thing is, you're sitting next to Bieber, and you're beautiful, and you're looking at this. It's too much. And so I just want to tell you right now, I'm upset about it, and there's nothing you can do to repair it because your success makes me hate you. There's somebody out there that thinks that way right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to give a crazy example, but I know people. Yep. One of my good buddies. Have you ever met Ryan Tedder, Chad? Have you ever met Ryan Tedder?
I haven't. No, I haven't.
Ryan went to college with me at Oral Roberts University. He went to Oral Roberts University. His mom, Marlene, is friends with my mom. Great guy. When he did the song Too Late to Apologize, I knew people that hated him. People that were like, man, that dude isn't real. Man, I remember that guy with Battle of the Bands when his voice wasn't that great, and I bet you it's all overproduced. Well, now Ryan's doing stuff live. I mean, he is sick. But even though he's going through all these improvements as a musician, I would say at least half the people that I knew were not happy about it, saying that he's a faker, he's a poser, he's a whatever. Help somebody out there that's dealing with anger at you that you're a beautiful man.
Well, I just think, one of my favorite lines that Bishop Jake says, he says, all of your heroes are getting punched in the face. And that always reminds me, everyone has haters, everyone has doubters, everyone has naysayers, not everybody likes you. For about every one person that likes you, there's maybe 10 that doesn't. That's just part of life. Jesus is like, hey, just heads up. If they hate me, they're definitely going to hate you. So being hated is part of the process and part of life. We are not in a popularity contest. We are in a servant's mindset. And, listen, if you never want to be criticized, don't ever do anything with your life. But the more you try and lead and the more you step out and the more you do things that you feel like God has called you to do, there's going to be pushback. There's going to be naysayers. And I think you got to get comfortable in your own skin. And that's why I really love the first section of the book. And you also have to go, I love Jesus. He goes, they try and praise him. He goes, guys, I'm good. I don't need any of the praises from man because I know it's in you. He only lived for the approval and the praise of his Father, which happened at his baptism. So I just think in life, you got to go, hey, some people are going to like this. Some people are going to hate. I always think when I preach, there's probably got to be people go, he yells too much. He talks too fast. He's got a weird accent. I can't stand that guy's preaching. There's other people out there going like, man, the way that guy does that, man, I receive from that. I really like that. And so you just got to, be you and be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus.
Now, you have been seen with Mr. Bieber. Now, my wife loves some Justin Bieber. My wife has been talking about Justin Bieber we've been married 20 years, and I'm pretty sure the entirety of our marriage, I've been hearing some sort of Justin Bieber story. We've seen the guy in concert. We've also seen the guy seemingly fall off the cliff. We've seen the guy rebound. We've seen the guy go through a lot. What is your relationship like with Justin Bieber, and maybe how would you describe him?
Well, he's just an unbelievable person. I don't know anybody that loves Jesus like this man. He loves his Bible. He loves to worship. He's the guy that's, you go into his bathroom, he's got scriptures up on his mirror, and he's praying all the time. And I often tell him, I think you're more spiritual than most any pastor I know. You're more disciplined in Bible reading and prayer and worship and devotion than most any preacher that I know. So he's just really a sweet, kind, loving, incredible person that, I don't like to use this language too often because it's kind of demeaning, but I'm proud. I'm just really proud of, no one can take credit for where he is. He's made all those decisions on his own.
Where do people tend to get, Justin Bieber obviously just did a documentary series where he kind of reveals to everybody what he's going through, what he went through, where he's at. Where do you think people get it wrong as it relates to Justin Bieber?
Oh, man, I that's a great question. I don't know, but that documentary, I think he just sets the record straight and lets everybody know who he is and what he's about. So I think if you can't watch that and understand what this guy's all about, you just, I don't think we're ever going to convince you.
So where do we need to go if we insist on buying a physical copy of your book and having it signed by you? Where do we need to go to do this? How do we? Because some of our listeners, Charles, you know this. We have some pretty persistent listeners. Charles actually drove 5 hours for the job interview to come work with us, right, Charles? You drove 5 hours,
and for the job shadow as well.
Yeah, so Charles drove 5 hours both way,
Wow.
5 each way, just to interview for the job, and then the job shadow for the job. So if somebody wants to buy your book right now, help. I work with people getting good at influence, leadership, and people skills. Where can they pick up a book and have you sign it, maybe?
Well, first place you can pick it up is Amazon. Amazon's the best place to get online and purchase it, and I'm really excited about the release of it. And to get it signed, first I'll just say, come to L.A. Let's just get it done. Let's get you, Disneyland's about to open back up. Let's get a churro in your hand. Let's get the book in the other hand. Let's get it signed. Let's party here in L.A. Let's get some palm trees going. And so come out to L.A. is my easy answer. And then if you can't make it out to L.A., hopefully in the near future, once everything lifts, we're going to be traveling around the country and signing books again. So hopefully I'll be able to meet you somewhere close to your town. If not, let's get out to L.A.
Zoe Church is the name of your church. What's the website you encourage people to go to learn more about your church?
ZoeChurch.org. Come on over and check out the church website. Amazing, great resources there.
Okay, controversial questions now. I know you haven't probably prepared for this question, but Charles is going to have a tough question for you. He's going to ask you a question, and you won't be prepared. You'll be blindsided. So I'm going to start with my easy rapid-fire round. We got about 3 questions left here. Rapid-fire, 3-4 questions here. Old school jam. This lets me know your character, so don't play the game with me. I know you, Pastor Chad. I know who you are. So what if you had to think about an old school jam, a jam where when you were back in middle school, remember that back in the day? Were your school dances in a gymnasium, sir, or were they in a cafeteria?
Yeah, of course. If we're going old school jam, I'm going Summertime by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, baby.
Summertime. So, and by the way, were the gyms? Help us picture it. Were you in a gymnasium? Were you in a cafeteria? Where?
Oh yeah, we're in the gym.
Oh.
There's some parents there. They're helping host PTAs there. Terrible lighting, awful sound system, and guys are on one side and girls are on another.
Oh yeah. Now, were you a guy that went out there and danced? Were you a dancer, or were you the guy who waited with your back up against the wall and you would not come out until the last song?
Yeah, no, never dancing in middle school. No way.
No dancing.
Not till you mature a bit. That's high school.
High school, okay. And then, how long have you known your dream woman now? How long have you guys been together?
We've grown up our whole life together. We've known each other our whole life. Our dads got saved together and called to the ministry together, and so we've just always known each other. It's pretty awesome that way.
So did you go to prom with her? Did you take her to prom?
No, because we live in different cities. We didn't go to prom together, but we just old family friends.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. My final question, and then I shall pass the mic over here to Charles. Why does a Kardashian endorse your book? Not a lot of pastors have any knowledge of a Justin Bieber or any knowledge of a Kardashian. And, some people, it's like, oh, Kardashian endorses a book. He can't possibly be this, you know what I mean? Some people will discredit the book because of that. Some will credit the book because of that. Why does a Kardashian endorse your book?
Well, I think, the thing about Kourtney in particular is that, here's a strong woman of faith, again, devout, loves Jesus, reads her devotion every day and is a close friend of ours. And so, I'm really proud of how she's pivoted. She's, really stepping into her new company called Poosh, and she's the CEO of that, and what she's trying to do as far as just bringing health to people. So I'm really honored that she would endorse my book, and yeah, she means so much to Joy and I. And so we're really proud of everything she's got going, and really honored that she would write an endorsement for me. That's a big deal.
Also, John Maxwell endorses your book. We've had him on the Thrive Time show multiple times. The great one, John Maxwell, endorses your book, Help I Work with People, Getting Good at Influence, Leadership, and People Skills. Charles, we have time for one final question for Pastor Chad here. What's your final question for Pastor Chad?
All right, my main man, Pastor Chad. My question would be, what was that moment when you realized that you were called by God and you could no longer run from that call?
Well, thank you for that question. I was 16 years old. I was in the Kingdom in Seattle, Washington. 65,000 men worshiping together at an event called, come on, Throwback Thursday, Promise Keepers.
Oh, Promise Keepers, yes.
I grew up in church my whole life, but this moment, 65,000 men, there was just a moment for me where I go, I'm in. I give up. I surrender. I had ran. I had fought it. I had ignored it and turned my back. To be honest, at 16 years old, I went back to my high school, and we started a revival in my high school. I mean, kids. The stories are insane because there's something about a young person that gets on fire for God. So yeah, it was a really special moment, something I'll never forget my whole life.
Pastor Chad, I appreciate you for being on the show, my friend, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom!
Hi there, my name is Stephanie Pipkin. I am 24 years old and I own Black River Falls Cleaning Services. We opened in April of 2019 and it is now mid-June of 2020. So I wanted to talk today about the success and growth I have achieved by implementing the Proven Path with Clay Clark's team and my business coach Luke from Thrive Time. It has been insane to say the least. I started working with them in mid-February of this year, so we're about 4 months in of working together, and it has completely transformed my business in pretty much every facet. So I'm gonna check my notes here. So in 4 months, my leads have tripled. I was getting probably like 2 leads a week. Now I'm getting more in the 10 to 15 leads a week. I have doubled my number of employees. I'm now hitting the highest revenue weeks in the history of the company, week to week it seems like. We went from about 6 appointments today as our highest in February to now 14 to 15 appointments a day. And hiring quality employees has become much simpler and less stressful by using their systems for hiring. I typically only get maybe 2 complaints a month, if that, and everybody shows up to work. I just have really high quality employees now, especially in something people typically consider a high turnover type of work, cleaning houses, cleaning businesses. I have amazing employees now, and I get rid of the ones who are not so amazing and bring on new ones because of, group interviews and interviewing every single week. It's just been great, and such I don't waste as much time on low quality candidates anymore. I have successfully gained our second largest commercial client, and this was during COVID. So again, I started working with Luke and Clay in February, and then COVID hit in was mid-March or so. So for the entire month of April, we were shut down residential, April and May, I believe. And so despite that, and again, being a new business and all this stuff, I mean, we came out of COVID stronger than ever, and now hitting our highest numbers in the history of the company. It just leads just piling in, and the beauty is when people call us, they're already sold because of our Google reviews, our online presence, the no-brainer offer that we now give to our clients, which is if they book their second appointment within a month of the first, they get 50% off. And again, they're just ready to book. I hardly have to do any work, it feels like sometimes, to actually book people. So that's amazing. every week I meet with Luke, and it's awesome. Obviously, I'm in Wisconsin, he's in Oklahoma, but we have a great time. I know I can text him at any time, call him at any time with any issues I'm having, especially when COVID did hit. They were so helpful in helping me get the PPP grants and everything settled away there, and really pushed me to make sure I was on the ball and getting all of the grants that I was possibly able to, which was amazing. So they've just been such a wealth of information, and when I'm freaking out because, a burning fire is happening, Luke's there to calm me down and, back me off the cliff edge. And it's just awesome to have him, as a resource there. So every week we meet and we have a big tracking sheet. So we track all my leads, we track my numbers, where the leads are coming from, any complaints. I love my tracking sheet. I know it's probably a little extra, but I love it because I can see everything that's actually happening in my business. And this is so important because it's not like I'm just saying, well, I feel like it's busier. I know if it's busier, and I know, are we making a profit every week? Why or why not? It's just amazing. And then I'm tracking my Google reviews, tracking my competitors' Google reviews, and Luke is always pushing me to get more reviews, even though, I was not very comfortable with that at first. It felt just pushy, but now I'm seeing the effects of having a lot of Google reviews, a lot to me at least. It's not very high compared to others, but people are finding us on Google and they're already ready to book because of our reviews. So, going for those reviews has been so integral in having basically easy sell leads. So tracking has been just so vital, and I really enjoy it actually. So anybody who is skeptical about working with Clay or Luke, the whole team at Thrive Time, I was definitely skeptical. And to me, again, new business, it seemed like a lot of money, but in comparison to other business coaches, especially like specific to the cleaning industry like I'm in, I mean, you're talking like $10,000 a month. And honestly, I feel like I get like that much value out of Luke just by meeting with him once a week. It's amazing. And it has just transformed my business in every single aspect. I mean, I always, aspired to be a successful business owner. And now, I mean, it's not even a question that this business is going to be successful, even if a pandemic happens and you have to shut down. I mean, if I can make it through that and directly because of them, it is absolutely because of them. Obviously, I'm a hard worker, blah, 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 all that. And, I was made to be an entrepreneur. However, having them as like the guiding light of this is what you need to do, and it's very straightforward, doesn't mean it's easy, but it is very straightforward of what needs to be done. And I like that. I like having that step-by-step process, and I love having the accountability, because there's a lot of stuff that they have me do that I don't want to do. It's not fun, but it works. And that, having that discipline to just do the things week after week, regardless if it's dull or boring or you don't want to do it, Luke really pushes me to do those things, which I love. I mean, I hate it at the time, but I love it because I can see how it's affecting my business in a positive way. And, I don't want to be just good. I want to be the best. And I see them as an integral part of that. And I will not be the best if I don't have them with me. So I love having them on my team, and it just feels like the best decision I ever made in my business. And I know I'm still really small and things like that, but there's a reason I reached out to them when I was small, because I want to be big and I want to not grow and then collapse because I grew too quickly without the correct systems in place. So it's been amazing, and I would suggest anybody who's willing to put in the work and do things that make you uncomfortable, reach out to them. But if you are not willing to change the way you are doing things, if you're not willing to implement a no-brainer, if you're not willing to ask for Google reviews, if you're not willing to write content, really, really boring content for your website so the Google bots find you, then don't reach out. You need to be willing to put in the work as well. And your coach will hold you accountable. I mean, which I love. Again, the tough love is really great. Luke's like a stern father figure, but he's also nice, but also stern when he needs to be, when I'm being lazy and not doing the things that I know I need to do because I don't want to do them. So that's just great. Worth every penny. I mean, I'd pay him $1 million a month if I can, and maybe someday I'll be able to, but I would just say go for it. If it seems like a good fit, just go for it. do what they say, even if you think it's stupid or ridiculous. Just do what they say because it'll work. You know, people, when they look at my business, you know, people in my town, they think I'm lucky. They think I'm just, you know, things just happen for me. And, you know, maybe I am lucky, but it has a lot to do with hard work and, you know, perseverance and, you know, working till you cry sometimes. That's just being an entrepreneur, which if you're a business owner, you understand that. But it's having these systems in place of, you know, of course I'm going to be successful. It's an absolute because I have all this stuff in the background happening, and I have Luke and Clay and everybody on their team working really hard to make sure that I'm a success. And I can tell that they are just so excited every single week when I'm having all these wins and things like that. They're so excited for me. So it's the best thing ever, and I would suggest to anybody to work with them. So sorry for the long-winded reply, but I just had so much to say, and I could go on for hours probably about how amazing they are. But thank you to Clay and Luke and the entire team there, everything you guys have done for me, and I am so excited to continue to work with you for years to come. Thanks so much for watching.